Greetings, and welcome to the Oracle's Sanctum. This is a space where we explore the hidden dimensions of the human mind, the mysteries of the soul, and the untold stories that shape who we truly are. Today, we begin a journey into one of the most profound ideas in modern psychology, a concept that not only explains why we sometimes act against our own values, but also reveals a path to deeper authenticity. Carl Jung's idea of the shadow. Carl Jung, one of the greatest pioneers of modern psychology, believed that every human being carries within them a side that remains hidden from the world. These are the thoughts, emotions, and desires that society often tells us are unacceptable. You can think of the shadow as a second face, one that we try to bury even from ourselves. Jung called this the shadow self. But why do we hide these parts of ourselves? The answer is rooted in childhood. From a very young age, we are taught rules about what is good and what is bad. Parents, teachers, and society all create filters for us. A boy might be told, "Don't cry, real men don't show weakness." A girl may hear, "Good girls stay quiet, they don't speak out too much." These lessons may sound harmless, but over time they carve away pieces of our authentic self. We suppress emotions, desires, and behaviors that don't fit the mold. Slowly, all of those repressed pieces gather into the shadow. Let me give you an example. Imagine a boy who is naturally very sensitive and emotional. Whenever he feels like crying, his parents tell him, "Stop it, be strong. Men don't cry." Eventually, he learns to hide his tears, to bury his sensitivity deep inside. But it doesn't disappear. Instead, it becomes part of his shadow. As he grows older, whenever he sees someone else being vulnerable, he feels annoyed, even angry. He might say, "Why are you so weak? Toughen up." What's really happening is projection. He is rejecting in others the very thing he has buried within himself. Now take another example. A young girl who is bold, outspoken, and unafraid to speak her mind. But her family constantly reminds her, a good daughter should be quiet and modest. To please her family, she silences her voice. She pushes her confidence and boldness into the shadow. Later in life, when she encounters another woman who is strong and outspoken, she feels envy or irritation. Once again, she is projecting her own suppressed qualities onto someone else. This is how the shadow works. It is not just about hiding parts of ourselves, it also shapes how we see and react to others. When we judge, criticize, or even over-admire someone, often it is our shadow being reflected back to us. But here's the deeper truth Jung pointed out: the shadow is not your enemy. It is not a monster to be destroyed. In fact, it is a hidden guide. Jung famously said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." In other words, we cannot reach wholeness by pretending to be pure and perfect. We grow by facing the parts of ourselves that we have denied, and by bringing those parts back into the light. So, how do we begin this journey of confronting the shadow? The very first step is awareness. Before you can change anything, you must recognize it. That means learning to notice the moments when your shadow shows itself, in your anger, your judgments, your envy, your shame. Here is a simple but powerful daily practice. Every night, take just 10 minutes and ask yourself 3 questions. What triggered me the most today? What qualities did I criticize in others? Could those same qualities be hiding in me? At first, your mind will resist this exercise. It's uncomfortable to admit that the traits you dislike in others may live inside you as well. But with patience, you'll start seeing the pattern. The very things that disturb you in others often reveal the hidden contents of your shadow. Another technique Jung recommended is called active imagination. This is a way of giving your shadow a voice. Close your eyes and imagine meeting your shadow as a person standing before you. Maybe it takes the shape of a stranger, or perhaps someone you know, or even just a dark silhouette. Then, start a dialogue. Ask it, "Why are you here? What do you want me to learn?" At first, the answers might feel like they are coming from your own thoughts. But as you write them down, you may notice insights surfacing that surprise you. Truths you didn't know you carried. This is your unconscious speaking through the shadow. Now, you might wonder, if the shadow contains anger, fear, jealousy, or shame, why should we embrace it? Isn't it better to leave it buried? Jung would say absolutely not. Because the shadow does not go away just because you ignore it. In fact, the more you repress it, the more power it gains over your life. When left unconscious, the shadow leaks out in destructive ways. Sudden bursts of anger, self-sabotage, toxic relationships, or an unexplainable emptiness inside. But when you face it, when you integrate it, the energy of the shadow transforms. What once felt like weakness can become strength. What once seemed dangerous can become a source of wisdom. The key insight of this first stage is simple but profound. Your shadow is not the enemy. It is the doorway to wholeness. By beginning to notice and reflect on your triggers, your judgments, and your suppressed desires, you take the first step toward reclaiming the parts of yourself you have lost. This is not an easy path. It takes honesty, patience, and courage. But it is the only path to true authenticity. And remember, this is only the beginning. In this first part, we've uncovered what the shadow is, how it forms, and how it shows up in our daily lives. In the next stage of our journey, we will explore how to accept the shadow, how to stop fighting against it, and how acceptance opens the door to real psychological and spiritual freedom. So stay with me. The path to self-discovery has only just begun. In the first stage, we uncovered what the shadow is and how it hides within us. We saw how it emerges through childhood conditioning, how it follows us into adulthood, and how it influences our reactions, judgments, and relationships. But simply noticing the shadow is not enough. Awareness is only the beginning. The next challenge is far deeper, far more uncomfortable, and far more transformative: accepting the shadow. Carl Jung once remarked, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." These words strike with unusual weight. Why terrifying? Because real acceptance means facing not just the parts of ourselves we like, but also the parts we wish did not exist. It means looking at ourselves without excuses, without masks, without denial. Most of us spend our lives carefully building a version of ourselves we want others to see. The kind, the confident, the hardworking, the generous. This image becomes like a polished statue that we present to the world. But the shadow is everything behind the statue. The cracks, the flaws, the unfinished edges. When life forces us to look at those hidden parts, it can feel as though our identity is shattering. Let's imagine an example. Suppose someone has always believed themselves to be patient, calm, and understanding. Then, one day, in a moment of stress, they explode in anger. They shout, they slam doors, and afterward they feel shocked, even ashamed. That wasn't me. I'm not like that. But the truth is, it was them. It was the part they refused to see, the shadow. Accepting that they have anger inside them does not mean they are suddenly a bad person. It means they are human. Another example. Consider a person who prides themselves on generosity. They give freely, they volunteer, they are admired for their kindness. But deep inside, they feel flashes of envy when others succeed, or resentment when their generosity isn't recognized. They bury these feelings, convinced they must not exist. But denying them does not erase them, it only strengthens their grip. Acceptance means saying, yes, sometimes I feel envy. Yes, sometimes I want recognition. That is part of me. This process is uncomfortable because it dismantles the illusion of perfection. But it is also liberating. By accepting the shadow, you no longer need to hide. You no longer waste energy pretending to be flawless. Instead, you begin to live as a whole person, light and dark together. How do we practice acceptance in daily life? One approach is to examine the stories we tell ourselves. Think about a trait you dislike, maybe laziness, fear, jealousy, greed. Ask yourself, where did I learn this was unacceptable? Who told me I should never feel this way? Often, you'll trace it back to childhood. Maybe a parent scolded you for being selfish, so you pushed down your natural desire to keep things for yourself. Maybe a teacher mocked you for being slow, so you buried your need for rest. By uncovering the origins of these judgments, you can begin to see your shadow traits not as signs of failure, but as survival strategies shaped by your past. Another practice is compassionate observation. Instead of fighting your shadow, watch it with curiosity. For instance, if jealousy arises, instead of saying, "I'm terrible for feeling this way," You can say, I notice I feel jealous right now. That's part of being human. What can this feeling teach me? This shift from judgment to observation changes everything. It breaks the cycle of shame. Let's pause here and imagine this more vividly. Picture yourself sitting in front of a mirror that reflects not your physical body, but your inner self. On one side, you see your strengths, your kindness, your courage, your talents. On the other side, you see the parts you usually hide, your fears, your flaws, your mistakes. Acceptance means looking into that mirror and whispering, this is me, all of it. Of course, this doesn't mean surrendering to your flaws or celebrating destructive behaviors. Acceptance is not permission to harm yourself or others. It is the opposite. By acknowledging your shadow, you bring it under your conscious control. What is accepted can be managed. What is denied manages you. Take the example of someone who struggles with insecurity. Without acceptance, insecurity becomes a secret driver. They overcompensate by seeking constant validation, by bragging, or by competing endlessly. But when they say, yes, I feel insecure sometimes, the dynamic shifts. The insecurity is no longer a hidden master pulling the strings. It becomes an open truth they can work with. Or consider sensitivity. A person who denies their sensitivity may try to act tough, but every small criticism cuts them deeply. They collapse under pressure because they're ashamed of their emotional depth. Yet, once they say, yes, I am sensitive. That is who I am, their sensitivity transforms into a gift, an ability to connect, to empathize, to create. In both cases, the act of acceptance takes the sting out of the shadow. Instead of being a hidden wound, it becomes a source of growth. Now, one of the greatest obstacles in this stage is shame. Shame convinces us that if others see our shadow, we will be rejected. But here is the paradox: the more we hide, the less connected we become. People are drawn not to perfection, but to authenticity. When you accept your shadow, you radiate honesty, and others sense they can trust you. That trust is born not from flawless behavior, but from the courage to be real. A simple exercise you can try is called shadow journaling. At the end of each day, write down 3 moments when you felt triggered, ashamed, or uncomfortable. Then ask yourself, what shadow trait might have been active here? Was I jealous? Was I afraid? Was I angry? Write honestly, without censoring. Over time, you will notice patterns. And with patterns comes clarity. Acceptance is also about balance. Think of life like a scale. If you deny your greed completely, you may swing too far into reckless generosity, giving away more than you can afford, resenting others for taking advantage of you. But if you accept that you have a tendency toward greed, you can balance it with generosity in a healthy way. Neither extreme controls you, you choose the middle path. And this is the deeper purpose of acceptance, to create harmony within yourself. You are not just your virtues, and you are not just your flaws. You are the union of both. Jung believed that wholeness, not perfection, is the real goal of life. And wholeness can only come when we stop rejecting parts of ourselves. So far, we have seen the shadow, and now we are learning to accept it. But there is one final step. Once we have acknowledged the shadow, once we have stopped hiding from it, we must take the next leap: integration. Integration means transforming the shadow into a conscious ally, a source of strength rather than sabotage. It is here that the shadow becomes not a curse, but a gift. And that is where we now turn. How to integrate the shadow into your life so that it no longer controls you from the dark, but walks beside you as a guide. We have now arrived at the most transformative stage of this journey. In the beginning we learned to recognize the shadow, then we discovered the courage to accept it. But there is one step that completes the process, the step that allows us to move from struggle into strength, and that step is integration. To integrate the shadow means to reclaim it, to bring it out of hiding, and to allow its energy to serve us instead of sabotage us. Integration is not about destroying the shadow or pretending it no longer exists. It is about weaving it into our lives in a balanced way, so that it becomes an ally on the path to authenticity. Carl Jung described this process as individuation, the journey of becoming whole, the meeting of light and dark, conscious and unconscious, strength and vulnerability. But what does this actually mean in daily life? It begins with awareness in action. Whenever you notice envy, jealousy, anger, or fear rising, instead of rejecting it, pause and ask, what is this trying to show me? If you feel envy, perhaps it points toward a desire you have ignored in yourself. If you feel anger, maybe it signals that your boundaries are being crossed. Fear might be warning you to prepare more carefully. In this way, every shadow emotion becomes a message, a guide pointing you back to the parts of yourself you must reclaim. Another powerful practice is to enter into a dialogue with your shadow. Imagine it as a figure sitting across from you. If your shadow is anger, picture it and ask, why are you here? What are you trying to protect me from? Often the answers are surprising. Anger may reveal that it shouts only because you have been silent too long. Fear may admit that it holds you back only because you have forgotten to trust yourself. When you stop fighting your shadow and begin listening, it transforms into a teacher. Integration also means owning your projections. Every time you find yourself judging another person harshly, ask, could this trait also exist in me? If arrogance in others irritates you deeply, maybe you have suppressed your own confidence. If someone's selfishness bothers you, perhaps you have buried your own need for self-care. By owning these reflections, you stop blaming others for what is really within you and instead use those moments as opportunities for growth. The shadow also carries enormous creative energy, and integration allows that energy to flow. Pain, sorrow, fear, and longing can all become fuel for art, music, writing, or storytelling. Many of the world's greatest artists and thinkers transformed their darkest experiences into beauty and wisdom. You too can give your shadow a voice through creativity, and in doing so, you release its power in a way that heals instead of harms. Balance is another key. Every trait has a destructive extreme and a constructive form. Selfishness, for example, can damage relationships when taken too far, but when balanced, it becomes healthy self-respect. Fear, if uncontrolled, paralyzes, but when acknowledged, it sharpens awareness and prevents reckless choices. Integration is the art of balance, finding the point where even difficult emotions serve your growth instead of limiting it. This process is not only mental, it must also be lived through the body. When strong emotions rise, pay attention to where you feel them physically. Perhaps anger tightens your chest, or fear knots your stomach. Instead of suppressing these sensations, breathe into them. Let your body guide you. Practices like meditation, yoga, or mindful movement help to connect the unconscious and the conscious, giving you greater control over the forces that once controlled you. Our relationships are perhaps the most powerful mirrors of all. The people closest to us often awaken our shadows more than anyone else. A partner's words may trigger deep anger, a friend's success may spark envy, a rival may stir fear or insecurity. Instead of blaming them, ask, what part of me is being revealed here? Every conflict, every irritation, every attraction has the potential to show us something about our hidden self. If we are willing to see it, relationships become some of the greatest teachers on the path to wholeness. Imagine, for a moment, what life feels like once integration begins. Instead of being enslaved by fear, you notice it early and use it as motivation. Instead of being overwhelmed by anger, you hear its warning and assert yourself calmly. Instead of hiding your flaws, you embrace them as part of your humanity. You no longer waste energy pretending to be perfect. Instead, you walk through life with quiet confidence, knowing that you are whole. Wholeness does not mean the absence of darkness. It means you are no longer afraid of it. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Integration of the shadow is that privilege. It allows you to reclaim the power you once buried, to live with authenticity, and to stand as a complete human being. This journey is not quick, nor is it easy. It asks for courage, honesty, and persistence. But it is the most rewarding journey of all, the journey home to yourself. So as we close this exploration, I invite you to ask yourself, what part of your shadow is speaking to you now? What trait, emotion, or desire, long hidden, is ready to be seen, accepted, and integrated? That answer could transform not only the way you see yourself, but the way you live your entire life. You have been listening to the Oracle's Sanctum, where we uncover the hidden truths of the human soul. If this journey has resonated with you, I invite you to subscribe and share this message with those who seek deeper understanding. Your support helps us continue exploring the wisdom of Carl Jung, the mysteries of psychology, and the timeless path of self-discovery. Remember this: your shadow is not your enemy. It is your teacher, your guide, your unclaimed strength. To embrace it is to embrace yourself. Thank you for walking this path with me. Until next time, stay curious, stay courageous, and above all, stay true to yourself.